Has there been anything that you've seen in the last few years that has impressed you as being new or novel or something that got you interested or excited?
I'm not sure I want to answer that one. I think that things impress me, and I think about them, and I think, well, surely we talked about that a decade ago in this way, and that doesn't matter. I mean, say, a concept that Saban puts forward, and I've always found very useful, is a de-differentiation of self and awareness. Now, de-differentiation of self and awareness was another way of talking of Ronald Shaw's concept of maybe phenomenal reality. It's been talked about in other ways, and that doesn't matter. I mean, science advances your knowledge by picking up aspects that stimulate you to think about them, and the fact that they're cloaked theoretically in different ways, I think is great. But I'm not sure, and this takes me further afield, I'm not sure that I ever react to anything anyone says as, gee, that's totally non-derivative. And if you ask me who might have contributed to science in a totally non-derivative way, I would struggle to name someone. I might name Freud, but there wouldn't be a lot.
That's interesting. Okay.
And by that I mean non-derivative means he or she has gone totally against the zeitgeist. And who is it in hypnosis and in most other fields who've gone totally against the zeitgeist? I'm not sure I could name one that has, and it doesn't matter. They've come forward with their own theories that have stimulated me and other people to experiment with them, create new knowledge, but we're all victims of our zeitgeists. We've got to accept it.
If someone were going to continue your research or continue your line of research, what would you love to see the next step be of somebody building on what you've done and what they would do with it?
I wouldn't like to advocate anyone continuing any of my research, mainly because what matters in their researching is what they want to research, what they're stimulated by, and what are the outcomes.
If somebody's interested in phenomenology, what do you think would be a next step of exploration?
I used a quote in the book that I published with Kevin McConkie, and that is a quote like, and it's my experiential analysis technique book with him, that says this book takes up a portion of the meaning of hypnosis. My advice to people is okay, find other portions.
Okay, that seems like a good place for me to stop with one last question, which is anything that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to be able to talk about?
No, I don't think so. I suppose what I want to say is that I wouldn't like anything I've said, and I know it's not going to be taken that way, or heard that way, to be anything dispiriting remarks upon the contributions of any of the people we've talked about. Their contributions have been marvellous. I've really talked about them in a particular way, and none of that is to pull back from the significance and the importance of what they've said.
I think it's very
including
clear.
yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it came through clearly that you have a respect for each person's work and an appreciation of how it's limited and what you would have wanted to contribute and expand.
What you might have asked me, and what I think in a sense you've flirted with but haven't, is look, is there anything totally original in anything you've read or thought about with respect to scientific investigation? I think I'd answer to that no, and it doesn't matter.
So looking at the field of hypnosis now, the big thing is epigenetics and the ability to measure changes in gene expression as a result of hypnotic experiences, and that has some, it's obviously a strongly biological orientation to it. And it's the clinical world, of course, that I'm interested in, and it's going to be clinicians who are reading this, and to acquaint them with your work, the experiential analysis technique, the role of phenomenology in the clinical interaction. Those are the things that I wanted to emphasize, and I think you said some really good things about them. I don't think that you really crystallized as succinctly as I'd like you to what the value of a phenomenological perspective is for the clinician. So I'm going to make that my last question.
Suppose that starts getting to, into question of philosophical models. And I'd say...
I'm actually trying to pull it out of philosophical
models.
models.
But let me answer that by saying I think that I'm not sure I'm going to allow you to pull me out of a philosophical model. I think the only answer to that is, look, I think the ultimate meaning of things has to be phenomenological. And I think we're not going to understand the nature of hypnosis unless we delve deeply into phenomenology of it. I get very disappointed in the drift of research across to EEG correlates, biological basis, gene sort of analysis. They've always been very unrewarding to me in the sense that when the crunch is down, the microscopic nature of what biology and that sort of analysis is so out of kilter with the complexity of hypnosis and hypnotic experience. And I think it has the look of respectability, of scientific rigour, but it misses the meaning of hypnosis, and it misses the phenomenological.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else I want to throw in. No, I've covered it. Anything else you want to add in?
No, I suppose the only thing I want to add is that I keep being enormously impressed. Impressed is not the right word, but in awe of the phenomenological experience of some subjects. And I remember in my days of collecting my data for my Ph.D, a person came knocking on my door in my laboratory, and I opened and he said, "Look, are you Peter Sheehan? I'm a subject for your experiment." And I said, "Yes, I'm Peter Sheehan. Would you come in?" And once he had identified me as the person he was coming to, he just collapsed. And I had to carry him to the chair, and he was already in deep trance. Now, that profound experience on his part is an awe-experiencing phenomenon for me. And the expectations of what was appropriate, the fact I was there to do what he expected me to do, he was there to fulfill the role of a good subject, his skill at being a profoundly good subject, all mixed together to present an extraordinary experience that I had to be in awe of.
What you're describing is a perfect representation of the sociocognitive perspective. T.X. Barber used to put hypnosis in quotes. He didn't really think there was a hypnotic state. He thought it was all about expectancy and social influence.
But let me be totally unscientific as a sign out for your session here.
Yeah.
It had to be that he was in deep hypnosis.
He was, much of the time. He was a superb subject. Thank you, Peter. What a pleasure.